I almost cannot believe it. The channel has reached 300,000 subscribers. That is so many people. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this amazing community of people all over the world. Thank you for your support, for your encouragement, for always having my back. It means so much to me and I'm so grateful. When I started this channel almost 7 years ago, I had absolutely no idea what would happen or where it would take me, and it has surpassed all my wildest dreams. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. So I asked you what kind of questions you had for me, and you came up with some really fun and interesting ones. So some were a bit more personal about me that I'd like to answer. Others are about being a highly sensitive person, about minimalism, about stress, about simplifying life. So let's dive right in. Let me know if you're drinking something. What are you drinking? I have some green tea with, what's in here? Raspberry. Raspberry. So let me know in the comments. Let's begin with one of the most popular questions. Do you talk openly with your friends or partner about being a highly sensitive person? Yes, I do now. It's not difficult or anything, but I do feel like it is a little bit difficult maybe for non-highly sensitive people to really get what life is like for a highly sensitive person, because it really changes just how we experience life. So one thing that I like to use as kind of like an example is, let's say that you were spending like 3 months in a dark, quiet cave, and then suddenly, you know, you leave the cave and you go walk on a bright sunny day in a really busy city, like let's say Tokyo. I think if you explain it like that, most people will be like, oh yeah, that will be like kind of like an assault on the senses. And then I say like, yeah, that's kind of what it's like for a highly sensitive person, always. And I think if you explain it like that, most people can kind of see like what it would be like. What are you looking forward to the most over the next year? Anything fun or relaxing planned? So, fun question. Not necessarily a lot, actually. We do have some small fun things coming up, like a concert that I'm really looking forward to, and some little like day trips for places that we want to go when the weather is nice. We actually did have a trip planned to London for 5 days in May last month, but we ended up canceling it because we were talking and we both realized that we really were not looking forward so much to traveling. Sometimes I really feel like I just want to be here and have things be like a little bit quiet and gentle and nice and simple, so that I can just like enjoy the little things. And that's really what I've been feeling. So I think it's important to listen to that. We might have something very exciting coming up next year, because we may be visiting Sarah and Jake in their home, but nothing is set in stone yet. So I don't know exactly like if and when and all the details, but we might. So this is Sarah from the channel Abundantly Minimal. We have been friends for years and they have visited us here in the Netherlands. So we might be visiting them next year, but I'll keep you updated. How have your views on minimalism changed over the years? I think I still feel basically the same about minimalism as I've always done. I've never been like a true extreme minimalist who really wants less, less, less. I've always been much more of a cozy, pragmatic minimalist, but I still love it just as much. I love how it simplifies my life. I love how it frees up mental space. I love how it de-stresses my existence, and I'm still, yeah, really into it. But one thing that I do realize have changed recently is just more like I'm a little bit more free in my views about it. Like, I'm not looking online or at other content creators to show me what minimalism should look like. I've always been the type to really make it my own, but recently I've really found that I'm not being influenced as much anymore by what minimalism should be, and I'm really starting to find my own groove with it. Like, one silly example is I personally actually like my kitchen counter to be a little bit more cluttered, a little bit more busy, because I feel like it shows that, you know, people live in this house. I love to cook while I'm there. I feel like it adds a bit of warmth and personality to the kitchen. We also have a rather small kitchen, so I don't have so many spaces to store all the things that I now keep out on my kitchen surface. And before this, I used to be a little bit like, but yeah, but that's not minimalist. And now more and more I'm finding my own groove with it. I'm really learning to zoom in on what I like, and even if it's not like technically Pinterest, Instagram minimalism, then I'm totally fine with that. Would you ever adopt a pet, or have you ever had any pets? I get this question so often. I really get the feeling like you all really want me to get a pet. I did have a couple of pets when I was growing up. I had a couple bunnies that I loved so much, and then by the time I was 11, I begged my parents to give me a puppy for my birthday, and eventually they did. He was a border collie. His name was Jimmy, and there's no way to explain how much I love this dog. I do think that I want to adopt a pet in the future from the shelter, adopt, don't shop, and all that, but I really don't feel ready yet. I'm thinking that maybe I'll get 1 or 2 cats. Just right now, when I think of all the practical implications that come from having to take care of a pet, I just don't feel quite ready yet. It's also funny because I'm vegan and everyone knows I love animals, but that doesn't always mean that you also want them in your own house, at least not right now. How is your Japanese coming along? すごいね。日本語はね、実は最初初めて日本語を勉強するの時に結構簡単だと思ってました。文法とか言葉とか発音とか結構自然な感じがした。でも最近は進歩がとっても遅いです。日本語はとっても綺麗な言葉と思うんですが、思ったよりもっと難しいです。例えば普通の会話がなんとなくできるのに、テレビを見たらまだ翻訳が必要です。だからいつか流暢に話せるようになりたいですが、できるかできないかまだわからない正直。最近はまたオンラインレッスンをしてるんですけど、とっても楽しいと思う。今まで3回日本に行ったことがあって、将来にまた行くといいなと思ってます。A video about why you love the Ghibli movies and recommendations for specific moods. I would love to make that video, but I really think that not a lot of people would be very interested in it. I think I would mostly be making that video for me. I have actually made that video recently, but I posted it on Patreon. I did a whole tour of all my Studio Ghibli Blu-rays, which are not all the movies, but close to that, and I discussed everyone and why I love them so much. So that video is on Patreon, just not on YouTube, unfortunately. You're probably the only YouTuber I know that does not use other social media platforms. Do you ever have the urge to try a new social media platform, for example, Instagram? Actually, no. I have never really had the urge to use social media myself personally, even before I became a YouTuber. I've never used it, and I still don't have that urge to try it or to use it for my work. I've always loved YouTube, both watching videos on YouTube and making videos on YouTube. I feel very much at home here. I feel like this is my space. But I've always kind of disliked all the other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's just not my thing. No judgment, of course, if you enjoy using those platforms, but I have never ever felt like trying to make something myself there. I'm actually really grateful that I've been able to turn YouTube into my full-time job without having to also cross over to other platforms. I think you're right in saying that there are not many people out there who don't use those platforms. I do feel kind of like the only one. Sometimes I'm sure there are others out there, but we are definitely the exception. But I'm very grateful that I haven't had to yet, because if it really was so that I had to start using Instagram or TikTok in order to continue to be a content creator, I'm not sure if I would do that, to be honest. Never say never, of course, I might change my mind about that, but this is how I feel right now. It's funny because I'm actually not listening to most of the advice that is out there for how to be a content creator and how to turn this into a full-time job. It's also why I've never hired a manager or a talent agency, even though I do get offers. They all say you need to hire a manager and you need to reuse your content across multiple platforms and you need to hire an editor so you can scale up your business, and I'm just being nope. I don't want to do any of that. I prefer to keep things kind of small and manageable and do things on my own terms and do things in a way where I feel like it is authentic and intentional and sustainable for me to keep up in the long run. And if that means that my channel and my business stay a little bit smaller and I don't make as much income from them as I could if I would do all of those things, then that is 100% fine with me. Not throwing shade on any other content creators who are doing things differently. We all can, make things our own, but that is how I personally see it. How do you start to declutter paper clutter? I have so much that it is overtaking my apartment and affecting my mood. When it comes to paper clutter, I know so many of you struggle with that because I get this question all the time, and I never feel like I have a good answer for it because I very rarely get papers into this house. So for me, the number one tip would be prevention. Try to really decrease the amount of paper coming into your home by opting out of things or selecting email instead of regular mail. Just the less paper you have coming into your house, then the less you have to organize. And I do know that there are very specific videos out there about paper clutter from other minimalist content creators who really have a lot more experience than I do with paper clutter. So feel free to look those up as well. I'm sure they're very helpful. I'm still on my minimalist journey, and at times I do find it difficult. What would your advice be to someone such as myself who struggles to let go? For anyone who struggles with letting go of things, I have two things to say. First is, don't feel like you have to get rid of everything to be a minimalist. You're okay to go slow, to take your time. Maybe you don't feel ready to declutter something now, but in a few years, after a few more decluttering rounds, maybe you'll change your mind, you'll think about it differently then. So wait with things until you feel ready. The second big thing is to, instead of focusing on what you're letting go of, focus on what you're gaining by decluttering that item. So every time we let something go, there is a sense of loss for the thing that we are losing, that we are letting go, and then there's also something that we're gaining. So if you're getting rid of a bunch of clothing, for example, then you're letting go of that clothing, that's the loss. But what you're gaining can potentially be a lot more valuable. You're gaining more space in your closet. You are gaining more confidence in how you're dressing. You're gaining easier morning routines because it's easier to know what to wear now. And I can go on and name like 10 other examples of the things that you're gaining when you declutter something. And when you start to focus on what you're gaining instead of what you're giving up, the whole thing just has such a more positive dimension that it makes it so much harder to let go. Just let things go. Be grateful for the role that they have played in your life until now. Try to give them a second life if you can, and focus on what you are gaining by giving them up. I know you don't keep many physical books around, but you do have some on your e-reader. Do you have a favorite genre? Fantasy, contemporary lit, romance, etc. So I currently have about 140 books on my e-reader. Most of these I have read more than once. I do have a full video overview of all the books on my e-reader over on my Patreon, and I do sometimes make an update video there with all of the books that I've been reading recently. I mostly read literary fiction, but I do also enjoy fantasy. I enjoy the occasional detective thriller type books. I enjoy dystopian. I like some of the classics. I especially love those slice of life kind of books that are not necessarily very plot driven, but are very character focused. And I haven't read a romance novel in many, many, many years, but I did just finish Funny Story by Emily Henry. It is the first Emily Henry book I've ever read, if you can believe it. But I really, really enjoyed it, so I might pick up a few more books from her. How did you understand what you wanted to do for a living? YouTube, Patreon, and more. I never did, and I still don't. My resume is very weird and confusing. So I worked in just a bunch of different shops and restaurants. I had a bunch of different office jobs. I was an orthodontist assistant, I was a dietitian, I went into the corporate world, and then I became a project manager, and now I'm a content creator. I've just always kind of gone with the flow in terms of jobs, and this is what came out. I do really love what I do now, and this is the first time that I've ever felt this good about my job, or that my job actually fulfilled me in that way. And honestly, I never really expected that to happen. I never saw it coming. For me to get a job that I love this much, so I feel very lucky. Is it hard to set limits with your hours, especially now that your following is growing? How many hours a week do you typically work, and do you stick to a set schedule? Yes, it's very hard for me to set limits, mostly because I don't want to disappoint people or let them down if I don't post a video. And also because I don't want people to think that I don't care or that I'm not like putting in a lot of effort, which is kind of weird, I know, and probably something that I need to unpack a little and work on. And also just because I love working on this channel so much, and I often have more video ideas that I feel excited about than I have the time or the energy to make. And sometimes it is frustrating for me because I wish I could put out a bit more content, and I wish I could work a little bit more and make a little bit more videos, but then I can't. So that also happens. I'll quickly notice that I'm crossing my own boundaries, and then I try not to do that. I do work full time, but I try to be a little bit more flexible and base my work hours around how I'm feeling in a certain week. If I have a lot of energy, if I have very little energy, things like that. And sometimes it is difficult if you have, for example, sponsored video coming up, then you usually have like a deadline. But the brands that I work with are always very nice and flexible, so they allow me to be flexible there too if I need to. Most weeks I work anywhere between like 35 to 40 hours a week, and then some weeks it's more like 20-25, and other weeks it's more like 50. It depends a lot on if I have a sponsored video, if I have a Patreon video that week, but on average it's like 35 to 40 hours a week. I'm doing everything by myself, so I have no like extra help or anything, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that has nothing to do with the whole like content creation itself, which is very time consuming. So yeah, there's a lot of work involved that probably most people don't know. Do you find your friends or family treat you differently now that you're an influencer and famous? Do lots of people in your personal life watch your videos, and if so, is it awkward for you? How do you handle separating online Vera from personal Vera? This is such a funny question because I really don't think of myself as someone who's like famous or even an influencer really, even though I guess I am one. Separating online Vera from personal Vera is actually really easy because they're exactly the same person. I've always found it very important to always show up here as my real self. So that's what I've always done. Some things I choose not to really share or talk about here on YouTube because they're just either too private or I feel like it is too much of a sensitive topic that I just don't really feel comfortable talking about it, knowing that tens of thousands of people are going to see it. So certain things I just kind of keep to myself, or sometimes I might feel a bit more comfortable talking about it on Patreon. About my friends and family treating me differently, maybe it's also just a Dutch thing because Dutch people are so grounded and we're not very easily impressed by things like a person's job or their status or anything. I don't think that anyone has ever treated me differently. I'm still the same Vera that they've always known. I think most people watch my videos occasionally, but probably like not all of them. Maybe my parents, I don't know. And that used to be extremely awkward for me, but I've gotten used to it over the years. The only thing that makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable is if someone watches a video of mine in front of me. I leave the room. I've also never been recognized in real life or anything like that, so I don't really feel like famous. Only a very small percentage of my audience actually lives in the Netherlands, so if someone was to recognize me here, it would be a big coincidence. But for example, one time my dad was talking with one of his coworkers at his job and the topic of minimalism came up, and it turns out that she actually knows who I am because she watches my videos. So things like that do happen sometimes, and that's kind of fun. I hope you never leave YouTube, but if you did, what type of career do you think you would consider? Do you ever daydream about other options? Honestly, I currently have exactly no clue of the kind of job, like what I would do after this. I don't really want to go back to the corporate world. I also don't really want to be a dietitian, so I don't know. I think I would probably just look for an office job that isn't too like demanding or stressful, like not too much responsibility, not too many meetings, something just more like burnout proof, so to speak. But it is not really something I think about because I really hope at least to stay being a content creator for a while. I do have daydreams. They are about maybe one day opening up my own tea shop or my little vegan cafe or lunch room, things like that. I keep coming up with cool business ideas, and I love daydreaming about finding like a nice name for them. I have all kinds of names already thought up. I like thinking about like what music would I put on and how I would decorate the cafe and which kind of teas I would serve and what I'd put on the menu, things like that. I think it'd be so much fun if I had my own cute little place that I could make to my liking and share my passions for tea and vegan food with all of other people. But right now, starting something like that is really just way too risky, and it's very hard for cafes and shops and restaurants and stuff, especially the individually owned ones, to make it in this economy. So I'm thinking that probably these will remain daydreams, but who knows? Do you use a bullet journal still, or do you have a different type of journaling system nowadays? No, actually I don't. I stopped bullet journaling in 2022, which was also my last bullet journal setup video. I currently don't even have like a good organizational system in place. It's kind of spread out over different kinds of spreadsheets and some lists on my phone and calendar in my phone, but somehow it does work, at least most of the time, because I can be a bit of a scatterbrain. Like this week, actually, on Monday evening, I just felt like, oh, maybe I should check my calendar, and then I was like, oh crap, I need to be at the hairdresser tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I better like wash my hair and stuff. Or I had an appointment for a checkup at a hospital a couple weeks ago, and I just showed up to the wrong hospital. So I'm a highly sensitive person, and although I would like to travel more often, traveling makes me quite anxious. Sometimes I would rather just stay home. Do you have any suggestions? Travel and being a highly sensitive person are an interesting combination, because I love travel because I feel like it really enriches your life, and if you're a highly sensitive person, you might experience that even more strongly. At the same time, it is one of the most stressful and exhausting things I can think of. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with travel, where like half the time while I'm there, I'm feeling like super excited and I love the experience. And the other half, I feel just absolutely miserable and utterly exhausted. A few of my tips, these are things that I always do to make it a little bit easier. And first is really do research. I know it's tiring, but it really helps. Everything you need to know. How are you going to get from the airport to your hotel? Where are you going to find like food? I always check to see where I can find vegan food. Make sure you have the logistics figured out before you go. It just takes away a lot of the stress. Do research which activities you want to do, like when do they open? Do they have specific days? Things like that. Don't cram your days full. Do slow travel, take rest when you need it, even if you feel like it's a waste of time because you paid to be here and you should be doing more. Do less. Do only the things that you're very excited about, and take rest. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to enjoy the experience. Find a balance between traveling light, so no lugging around of heavy suitcases while you're there, but bringing what you need to have around to be comfortable. And lastly, invest in your comfort. So I would prefer to go traveling less often, so that I have a bit more money to spend on things like lodging, maybe a direct flight instead of a layover, things like that. Make sure I have a place to stay that is nice and quiet, where I can get my rest, things like that, because otherwise I'm just gonna be too exhausted to enjoy anything. If you were a potato, how would you like to be cooked? Well, if I was a potato, I guess I wouldn't want to be cooked. But if it's about eating them, I like any and all potatoes. I love potatoes. They're one of my favorite foods. Baked, fried, mashed, cooked, I don't care. I love them all. As Dolly Parton said, I never met a spud I didn't like. Is there a chance your boyfriend will participate in a video? Probably not. He's a private person, which I totally get. Like, not everyone wants to be on the internet, so I just don't press him on it. I do sometimes share pictures of the two of us together over on Patreon, so at least the Patreon people do know a little bit more about him, like what he looks like and stuff. My question is, how long have you been vegan? I've been vegan for about 5.5 years now. And before that, I was a vegetarian for 15 years. So I haven't eaten meat in more than 20 years. I'm now 35, by the way, if anyone's watching who doesn't know. Going vegan has been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. Congrats! Thank you! I would love to know, what are some of your all-time favorite songs? Oof, that is a very difficult question because I love music so much and my taste is really eclectic when it comes to styles of music. I like super soft and sweet. I love heavy metal and anything in between, basically. I have my own list on Spotify that has my favorite songs in it, and it currently has 1,000 songs on there, exactly 1,000 actually, that's funny. And I actually curate this list, so I will just listen to this on shuffle, and as soon as a song comes up that I'm just not really feeling anymore, I will take it out. So that basically means I have 1,000 favorite songs. Just looking through here, a few that caught my eye are Hopipola from Sigur Rós, one of my favorite bands ever. Hand in My Pocket from Alanis Morissette, I love that song. Rewrite from Asian Kung Fu Generation. Megitsune from Baby Metal, really cool band that I also saw live. Esclavo de sus Besos from David Bisbal, and yes, I love this song also because of Jane the Virgin. Be Quiet and Dry from the Deftones. On Melancholy Hill, the Gorillaz, I love the Gorillaz. Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. Ask Me Why from Joe Hisaishi, but basically anything from Joe Hisaishi. When You Were Young, The Killers. Consequence from the No Twist. Really beautiful song, definitely recommend looking it up. Karma Police, Radiohead. Let's say 1979 from the Smashing Pumpkins, but basically almost every song from the Smashing Pumpkins. Alright, few more questions. How, where, or when did you learn English? Is it common for everyone to know in the Netherlands? Do you and your partner speak it at home, or how do you practice your skill? So my partner and I don't really speak English with each other. We basically only speak Dutch. But I do read basically all of my books in English, and I've done that ever since I was a little girl, so I think that definitely helps. And I've also always played video games, which are in English too. Even before I started this work as a content creator in English, I worked for an international company, so we used a lot of English there as well. I think my English is maybe just a little bit better than the average Dutch person, but almost everyone can speak English here. It's just that most people have a bit more of a Dutch accent than I do. I do still have a bit of a Dutch accent, but the Dutch speak English more like this. That's awful. Sorry. Do you have any areas in your home or in your life where you're not really a minimalist? Well, tea, definitely. Otherwise, I don't know. I do have my Studio Ghibli Blu-ray collection that maybe technically isn't necessary to have them in physical copy, but I don't even think that makes it not minimalist, because it's something that I bought very intentionally and I get a lot of value from. I guess I'm just not an extreme minimalist in the area of hobbies and interests. I allow myself to explore them completely and get some things that I love, like tea and books and games and some Studio Ghibli, merchandise or souvenirs or stuff. But I'm still also very intentional even in those areas. So no, I guess I wouldn't say that I have any areas where I'm really not a minimalist or not intentional in my life. Many hearty congratulations, Vera. I did 30 days slow living too, and it was amazing. It's so nice to hear. How can you be more calm and relaxed? I know you recently made a video, but tips for a beginner would really help. Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to hear that you enjoyed my 30-day slow living course. I don't know if many of you know about this, but I actually also have written an ebook about decluttering. I have a 30-day slow living course, which is called Unhurried, and then I have a full 20-week course to simplify your life. The links to all of those things are always in the description box, but they're a little bit more lower down, so maybe you don't know. There are many things that one might try to be more calm and relaxed, but for beginners, the number one thing that I would want to recommend is trying to practice slowing down. Physically slowing down, especially when you feel hurried and stressed. So let's say you are running errands and you're going to the supermarket. A lot of people, those kinds of chores, they tend to rush through them, and when you go about to the grocery store and you're rushing and you're grabbing things as quickly as you can, you start to feel stressed. It just increases that stress and anxiety in your body because you're moving fast and you're trying to get it done as fast as possible. But the truth is, you don't have to rush that stuff. Even things that you might not consider to be like pleasurable, you could just do things slowly and take your time. And like, what would happen if your running errands takes like 10 to 15 minutes longer? Because that's really what we're talking about. Like, it's not going to take you hours longer if you just slow down a bit and take your time. It's gonna be like, maybe it takes you 15 minutes longer, but by the end of it, you will feel relaxed and calm instead of hurried and stressed. I always try to do this whenever I feel stressed. I slow down, and the difference that makes is incredible. One book that I really love is this one. It is called The Things You Can See Only When You Slow Down by Hyman Sunim. And not only is this a very interesting read, but it is also deeply relaxing and comforting. And he also talks about slowing down whenever you feel rushed and stressed, and just calming down, slowing down, and like how that works when you do that and how to practice with it. So it's a really great book. All right, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around here until the end. I hope you had fun. It's been such a long time since I made a Q&A video. I can't even remember the last time I made one on YouTube. So I had a lot of fun, and thank you to everyone who participated. And thank you for sticking around until the end of what I no doubt think is going to be a long video. If you like these kinds of videos, then definitely consider joining us on Patreon too. These are very much like our tea time chats that we have there, only in the tea time chats is more often like advice, people asking for advice about specific things, but it's also like Q&A style, and then you get to join in if you want and decide the topic for the next tea time chat and stuff. So you can go to patreon.com/simplehappyzen to sign up. It's $5 a month, and by doing that, you're also supporting my work as a content creator and getting extra content from me in return. So it's a really great system. I'm going to sign off, and I'm very happy that I was able to get through this video, and thank you all so much without getting emotional. And as I'm saying it, I'm getting emotional. Thank you so much for being here. It's so wonderful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Do any of you have any recommendations for which Emily Henry book I have to read next? And also, I've never read a Sally Rooney book, so maybe you can recommend one too to start with.